Hey everybody, welcome to this episode of the Brutal Truth About Sales and Selling podcast. Today I want to talk about 5 ways we can compound. Now, compounding is critical, and this is one of the elements that a lot of people miss out of life and don't really get, meaning that everyone's kind of in a stimulus response. We have to be conscious, really conscious and focus to really compound, because compounding is the only way we get better, other than osmosis, than just existing. Now, let me tell you a little story about compounding, because I get in this discussion with pretty much everybody, because I heard one of those internet guys talking about, oh, hard work's the only thing that can really distinguish you. You really can't get smarter or more strategic. The guy really said this. It's like, you can't get smarter? What happens when you learn something? Oh, you can't learn a strategy? I've learned a lot of strategies. And then he goes on to say, well, it's like physically, you can always get stronger by lifting weights and stuff. Well, can't you get smarter by studying and learning and practicing? And it's like this hard work is a component. It is a key element. It's the action. It's the doing things. And I just shook my head going, oh, this guy's popular. I think people just love to hear it. It's kind of the sugar and the candy of motivation. But what I want to talk to you about is this story. Over the holidays, I happened to be in New York City. And I was at a bar, God forbid that happened. And I ran into, my friends ran into one of their friends, and we got invited to this party. And the party was an open house at this beautiful new condo building in Manhattan. I mean, really beautiful. And we were up on the top floor, and there was this huge party. We really weren't dressed for it. We were kind of crashing it in a way. And I'm up there, and I'm like looking out the window, and I'm just amazed. I don't know how many stories up it was, but it was high. It was, where you get dizzy when you look out the window. And I happened to not really bump into, but start talking to this older lady. She was older, like 93. And she was pointing down at the street, and she goes, when I was a little girl, I grew up in that building. She was pointing to this tiny old building, and it was like 2 families lived in this like 1,000 square foot apartment. And I'm like, wow, that must have been uncomfortable. I go, were you born in the U.S.? And she goes, yeah, I was first generation U.S. My dad came over from Russia and, came over, the story, $2 in his pocket, went to Ellis Island. And for those outside the U.S., Ellis Island was kind of the entry point, the immigration point into the U.S. during that huge influx from Europe around the 1900s. And she was born here. Her parents had come over, and her dad was a tailor. He made suits and dresses. And I go, wow, that's an interesting story. And then she goes, this building is my son's. I go, your son owns this building? And she smiled, that sense of pride that a parent has. And I go, well, how all that happened? She goes, 2 words, hard work. It went off on me. I was like, it wasn't just hard work, was it? She goes, no, it was just hard work. And I go, well, tell me, what did you do? Well, I grew up, my dad's, business. I worked there. He basically would repair sewing machines and then basically lease them out to people who would build or make the dresses that he sold. So he had a clothing company, and he did really well with it, and he had sold it. And, she had married an attorney and had a family. She was a homemaker, but she also was a school teacher. And her son, and I go, was he a lawyer? She started shaking her head. She goes, my daughter, she was a doctor. I couldn't get him through college. And I go, well, how did he become so successful? And she goes, oh, it was just hard work. I go, well, but look around. Aren't all these people working hard? And she goes, yeah, I guess. And she was like trying to like, what's your point? And I go, my point was that it's not just hard work. It's smart. It's like building a business. It's compounding. It's taking something and making more out of it, like your dad did with the sewing machines, that then built a company that built equity. And instead of being an employee, they owned something. And she goes, well, you're right. We saved every penny we had. We valued education. We stuck to having 2 children, even though I wanted more. But we put all our resources into our family, and, we saved money. And she goes, you know what the smartest thing I ever did? I go, what? She goes, in 2007, I took all my money and I invested in my son. Her husband had just passed away, and I go, why'd you do that? And she goes, well, I knew he was going to inherit most of it anyway, and he needed it for a building. And she goes, the luckiest thing was I had all my money with Madoff. And I go, whoa. And I go, well, that's pretty smart now, isn't it? That wasn't just hard work. That was smart. Not having all your money in one place, but giving it to somebody who she really trusted, a family member. And she was telling me the story of her son, didn't make it through college. He had, learning disabilities and just attention deficit disorder, but he had a passion for building. And he had, done building after building, flipping them over and over again, and had a passion. She goes, even when he was a little child, he played with blocks. He was always looking at the paper. He would look at a building and say how it could be better. He understood that. That was his passion. That was his interest. And every year it was more and more. And I go, now, isn't that a lot more than hard work? She goes, yeah, you're right. And I go, weren't there all those other people that looked around you that worked just as hard? And she goes, yeah, I guess, but they didn't work as smart. Oh, so smart has a component to it. And she smiled and she goes, yeah, you see more than I'm seeing right now. And what it taught me was that, that people get stuck. They think that it's just this one thing, that it was as many things, these many elements. And then her son came over and he goes, hey, are you trying to pick up my mother? And I go, hey, don't block me. I think I'm getting somewhere here. And everyone laughed and stuff. And it was so a sense of pride. And you sensed that in, essentially 2-3 generations, they went from dirt poor to, I'm sure it must be worth hundreds of millions of dollars. I don't know. I don't know real estate that well. Could have borrowed all the money for all I know. But now, how does this apply to sales? Now, in sales, too many people look at it as just a activity. And they don't understand that if you don't compound, you're not going to get better. People get comfortable, and I hear this all the time. Oh, this is how I'm doing it, and it's working. And I go, are you making the kind of money you want to make? Well, I could if the economy was better, or if the product was better. But I always say, well, how about if you were better? It's like, how about if, do you think how many comedians and musicians there are out there that say, oh, all I need is that chance. All I need is that one opportunity, that one break. And then, because I'm as funny or I'm as talented as this other person, and I work just as hard, if not harder. And I go, isn't it like this combination, this recipe? And when you say that, you're doing yourself such a disservice. And that, because Steve Martin always had this thing, you got to be so good that people cannot ignore you, that you have to be that good and that perfect, that, the best person you can be. And in sales, too many people get comfortable. The minute you get comfortable, you're going to kill yourself. And don't get me wrong. Like when you're in front of a customer, when you're on the phone, when you're talking, when you're presenting, when you're in the game, you've got to be there, 100% behind that. But at least once a week, when you have time to yourself, you got to ask yourself, what can I get better at? How do I compound my ability? So let's go through 5 of these, because if you can do this, you can really change your career. So obviously, number 1 is you. Now, this is like your skill set as a salesperson. Are you a good listener? Are you a good speaker? Can you keep the pace right? Can you ask great questions? Are you really stretching yourself as your knowledge base growing? Because you know what? You can become smarter. We might have an upper limit in our learning ability, but I don't think we'll ever touch it. Most of us will never touch it. And a great book that you got to read is Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. Now, he kind of dissects success into many different categories. And one of the stories he has is of the smartest guy in the world, this Christopher Langan. And he's got 180 IQ, the highest that's ever been measured. Now, if you bought into the IQ, the smartest, solely the smartest thing, you would think that he would be running the world, or he would have a huge company, or everything that he dreams of. He doesn't. He's a farmer in like Montana. Granted, he really studies stuff and gets into stuff, but is capable of great intellectual things, but his emotional intelligence prevents him from achieving that. So we can't just think it's just intelligence, but we also can't think that we can't learn stuff. I mean, everything that you want to know is out there in some manner, and you have to curate it, or you have to find a mentor or a teacher. And when you become ready, that person will appear. The problem is we sit around comfortable waiting for the car to break down before we maintain it. We have to constantly be maintaining this and making it work for ourselves. And what we're doing is ignoring that. So number one is your skill set, developing it every day, a little bit, not a lot, just a little bit every day, and understanding that you're not perfect. That the minute you can then break that down, you got it. The next thing, and now this might not be in any particular order, but your network and sales, this is your tribe. If your tribe isn't expanding, isn't solidifying every day, there's something seriously wrong. You've got to expand and solidify your tribe constantly. Because if you don't, this is your ability, your manager, your customers, your suppliers, your coworkers, all of those people that can either help you or sabotage you, because that's it. You got to, am I in their tribe or am I outside? If I'm not inside, I'm outside. It is kind of binary. And if you can't get that and build that, you're really going to suffer. I mean, that's kind of why I do the podcast. I want to expand my tribe. I don't want to go around meeting everybody, but I like to expand my tribe. Are you doing it online? Are you connecting with people constantly? Are you adding just tiny little bits of value to them? Are you even aware that you need to do this? Or are you thinking, I'll do the deal and then I run away? That hunter mentality, you got to have a little bit of farmer in you. You got to have that building it up every day, adding a little bit of value. So number two is your network. You got to work on that, because that does compound. Because every job, every deal, everything becomes easier as your network expands. Number three is your process. This is kind of your recipe of how you sell. And too many people, it's knee-jerk. And I got to tell you, I bet there's less than 3% of the salespeople who have any kind of process, other than, the kind of like rote, their daily habits. They've got that, but are they honing it? Are they understanding what's working? Where are they getting stuck? Where is their resistance? Are they able to move through it? Number four is the ability to prioritize. I bet most salespeople prioritize least important to most important, instead of like, what's most important today? What's the one thing that I can do today to make things happen? If I do this one thing, what will it make every other piece that much easier? What is that one thing, and how do I deal with it? The prioritization, when I see somebody, I can tell how successful they're going to be by how they prioritize. Because either they do the most important things first, or they spend way too much time working. I heard this podcast with this guy his company, they work, 5 or 6 hours a day with no breaks. But that's all they do. That's the whole day. Meaning it's not an 8-hour day and they go home and then work. They go, no, we come in, we have a structured 5-6 hours, and then boom, you have the rest of the day off. And, if you prioritize your time, if you really videotaped yourself during the day, how much of your time would really be used properly? And number 5 is your judgment. This is kind of something that just comes with time, when you can look at something and say, this is an A, B, or C deal. This deal's either going to happen or not happen. a lot of people get this when they're interviewing people. They can tell immediately if the person is going to be a great hire or not. This judgment of whether a company is going to succeed or not, or whether a deal is worth spending time or a person is worth spending time on. I used to call it my BS meter, because after a while I could go into a meeting and I could, talk to the people at the account and I could get a sense, is this deal going to close in my lifetime or not? And I'm not saying I can still do it because you go into different industries and it takes you a while to get the sense of, okay, the company's got to be big enough. It's got to be this period of time. You got to be talking to the right person. They've got to have the right problem. And that judgment, you get the compounding. So when you start to think of compounding like interest, meaning like, the family that I met in New York, they did very well with Madoff, 10, 12% a year for decades. Now, if they went one more year, they would have been broke, right? So the compounding is good, but compounding in the right place is even better. Anybody who's owned a house understands the compounding. Every year your mortgage goes down, the value of the house goes up. Now, how do you do that for your career? How do you reinvest every day and start thinking of yourself as the asset, as that salespreneur? Because if you don't do this, no one else is going to do it for you. We used to have companies that gave you pensions and you had a plan, and some civil servants jobs still have that. Some government jobs have pensions. I still can't understand how that can even exist from an economic standpoint. But we as individuals have to do it for ourselves. We have to think long term. We have to think about building our career. And if you're not doing this, you're going to sink because somebody else will. I think the sales jobs are going to, the divide is going to be huge. It's going to be very few great, fantastic sales jobs, and then there's going to be a lot of crummy ones. I think even the B jobs may be disappearing, meaning that companies are going to get bought out, or most companies go out of business. A couple of companies went out of business last year. Companies that I had been talking to that I thought had pretty good products and services. But the only reason a company goes out of business is because there's not enough money coming in. Doesn't mean it's a bad idea. No, it means that they can't get enough customers to exchange money for what they do. Maybe it's too early. Maybe they have the wrong salespeople. But I've also seen these companies get sold, and they get sold because they can't capture enough market fast enough. So the salespeople that can build and understand a model that can crush it are the ones that are going to succeed. And that's why I share all these things with you. And it's not just my course. Oh, I got to tell you, the price is going up February 1st. So if you want to get in and you want to save some money, sign up now. It's going to be, I've extended to 6 months, the course length, not the pricing. The course length is 6 months. If money's an issue, you can payment plans. There's 6, equal payment plans that'll get you through. It'll pay for itself. I'm telling you, the first 2 weeks, the results are amazing. I'm telling you, if you apply it, you can get these meetings, start these conversations. And let's face it, we're in January. Every day you wait is costing you money. You've got to start building your meetings, getting people on the phone, in person, however you need to, with the cold ones. The warm ones are going to come to you. I'd have no doubt you do well with the warm ones. It's the cold ones, getting into that and checking out the partners that I have assembled for you. Prezi with the presentation capabilities. I just did a video for Pipedrive on their smart contacts. Great feature. It saves you infinite amount of data entry. Just click a button and boom, you get all the contact information. Boom, you get all the information about the company, all the social links. You can go then trace the social links, find out what they care about before they contact them. Awesome stuff. Same thing with Nudge. Nudge has got some new capabilities with their team. The whole idea is to work off of relationships, off of your tribe and the extension of your tribe, which does compound. Now, think about that family that went from sewing machines, a couple of dollars in their pocket, to hundreds of millions of dollars. It is not just hard work. It is not just luck. Yes, you have to be at the right place at the right time, but we have that capability today. And if you apply yourself and get uncomfortable for just a second, assume that you're not perfect for just a second, because are you making the kind of money you want to make? Quit blaming other people. Own it. Because those people aren't going to change. The only one that can change is us. Hey, I hope you appreciate it. I didn't mean to be too preachy. I wanted to get this episode out. I had a couple of interviews, but I'm like, oh man, why didn't I tell that story before? Because it's such a great story. Because when you hear people, oh, this, that, and the other thing, and I get it. We've all been victimized at one time or another in our lives, but we're not victims. Once you take on that victim mentality, it's not serving you any good. Hey, I can't let you go without talking about the training. What better way to compound your skills than to actually commit a year to excellence? Now, this is a course I'll be building over 2019, but I'm going to include it in Closing the Complex Sale. And Closing the Complex Sale is really for anybody who's selling into the complex sale. It is basically the stuff that I've been teaching for the last, 8 years now, 7 years. I've been doing it in person. I've documented. I've put it into electronic format, and now sharing it with everybody. And it's not just content. You get 2 community courses, 2 community meetups a month. You can have unlimited one-on-one coaching sessions with me, and you get to ask questions at any time. It's really going to be crowdsourced in 2019 as far as this year to excellence. I asked myself last year, it's like, what would I want as a rep? I would want this year-long, committed, curated, precise content and process to become great at sales. Now, this is everything. This is not just the strategy, what to say, what to do, your map to money. We got all that. We've got all that in spades. But what I would want is everything else. What about energy level? What about mindset and all the elements of mindset? I don't want to spend 5 years getting the mindset of a champion. I want it out of a month, maybe 2 months. But how do I build it in? How do I build these habits every day with only committing maybe an hour a week? Not, an hour a day or 2 hours a day. I get it. We're overwhelmed with things to do, with knowledge. And if I've learned anything in helping reps is that the knowledge is the 20%. The 80% is doing it. And then getting some feedback, talking to somebody, hearing other people, seeing what they're doing right and what they're doing wrong, and learning from each other, holding each other a little bit accountable, building up daily habits that are tolerable, not these New Year's resolutions, going from couch to 10K in 10 minutes. That doesn't work. If it did, you wouldn't be listening to this. You'd be on the beach right now or flying around in your private jet. We're all human. We change gradually. And we tend to bite off too much knowledge and not enough implementation. We've got to do a lot of implementation and a lot of precise knowledge. The top 1 to 5% of what we need to know to get the 95% of the results. None of us want to wait 5-10 years to become great. We want greatness now. We'll settle for it in a year. But we have to do a lot of work, have the precise knowledge, have a community to connect with. So check out that course at b2brevenue.com. Hit the training tab, and there you can both find out about the courses and schedule a time to talk about it. If you do schedule a time, please be serious, because it is my time that you're taking as well as yours. But I do want to help you. And if there's anything that would make the course more enticing other than free, you wouldn't do it for free anyway. Those people are just too lazy, and they're looking for the silver bullet. And here's a little hint. You're not going to find it. I looked for it for years and years. Then I gave up, and then I started how would I do this if I was an engineer? Well, I would break it down into pieces. I would model the best people. I would run it, see what broke, fix it, run it again, see what broke, fix it, design it. And that's what we do in these courses. So I hate even using the word course because it's much more of a process. And yeah, it costs a little bit of money. Think how much it's costing not to do it. Now, imagine if you were a year from now making 1.5x, 2x, 3x what you're making. That's what it's costing you not to do it. Can you do it on your own? How well have you done so far? Most of us need some level of connection with other people, somebody to talk to, somebody to show us the fastest way. Nobody showed this to me. The people that I dealt with were shooting from the hip. They had 20, 30 years experience, and they couldn't articulate what they did differently. They could say, oh, it comes naturally after 30 years, but none of us have that time. So make sure you're checking that out. Also, check out the show notes. I've got a sample email in there that you can use to get your manager to pay for it. And if they don't, you got to pay for it yourself. You got to invest in yourself, and it costs less than a dinner out per month. So which would you rather, a nice dinner or triple your income? You decide. It's up to you. I can't bring you to the water, or I can only drag you so far. I've been dragging a lot of people to the bank throughout my life, so check that out. Also, make sure you're checking out our partners. Co-Video is just crushing it. Check out their YouTube channel. They show you how to get started. They got a Chrome plugin right now. You've got to be using video email. It's the way to engage. And if you're having trouble getting into new accounts, start the conversation. The meeting will get it to you. I'm going to leave a little sample at the end of this of the people who are just crushing it, the biggest deals of their career after a couple of months in the course. Is it a silver bullet? No, but the silver bullet is understanding your customer and doing what is most likely to happen and anticipating and understanding what you're up against. In sales, we're under so much pressure, we become blind to what works. And we come too close to the problem to see the solution. And that's what I'm there to help you for. So make sure you're checking that out. We'll see you next time. Hey, I hope you enjoyed that. Gary's a fun guy. And I think if we really take that attitude of our network, each person in it, and just touching them, helping them, and bringing something to them instead of just worrying what we can get out of this transaction, if they are a wasted time or not. And that attitude, that approach is so much more powerful because if you heard him call me Rob a couple times, the reason for that is he was introduced to me by a friend of mine whose name is Rob, and I think he got confused. But it just goes to show that he was leveraging his network to get expand and meet new people that could help him with his business, people that help get the word out. And these little efforts, these little things tend to mount up, and we tend to only focus on what is going to close right now, and we should, and when we have other time, we should be focused on what can close sooner or later. And sales is a priority thing, and it may sound contradictory because I'm always talking about, prioritize in the order of closure. And I agree with that 100%. But then we have the rest of the day. And the rest of the day, we tend to just go out and try and find totally cold things, as opposed to things that we had touched 3 months ago, 6 months ago, because timing in sales is so critical. The people who are in market and active, they come to us. The people that is the real market are people that shouldn't talk to us, but the timing just isn't right. They don't know what we do yet. They're not even curious. Their level of interest hasn't peaked yet. That's our job. And we can't do it directly. If we do it directly, that's a take. That's not a give. And a give, we have to become creative at because we're not used to that. So I listened to this episode a couple of times because it really is gold. If you really want to get good at this, start the conversation, get the meeting is for you. It takes your whole addressable market, prioritizes it, and I show you a systematic way of doing this that isn't time consuming, isn't cold calling, isn't cold emailing. It's organic, it's natural, and it really is a process to what Gary is talking about. It takes the thinking out of it because it's a lot of work if you do it one off every time. But if you have a systematic way of doing it, it's really powerful. If your challenge is you're getting in and talking to people, but the deals are stalling, there's no decision, it's stuck, you're not really sure where it is or where it has to go, and you just need help. Closing the complex sale is for you, and it's just great for anybody who wants to take their game to the next level. And if you're the B player that thinks, oh, I know everything, I've done everything, it's the market, that's the problem, it's my territory. Well, that's not the course for you. I don't know what, I think therapy is the course for you. But if you really want to take your game to the next level, including me, and that's why I came up with the Year of Excellence. What I wanted to do is let me document the very best I've seen. Let me do the research, curate it, condense it into something that reps can take and not have to, read 4 books on this, 5 books on that. The problem with that is, you get a lot of knowledge, but you don't take any action and you forget it and you move forward and you get stuck in the rut. How do you come up with a systematic way within a year, whether you start in January or you start in November? It doesn't matter. You just get into it and get momentum and get what I call compound selling. See, my frustration as a sales rep was I didn't see enough compounding. And I always was obsessed with compound interest ever since I was a kid. And if you want to learn about it, check out Warren Buffett's documentary on HBO. It is pure gold because he was obsessed with it. And the idea is that you don't start like Groundhog Day every day. You build off of every day. You build off of your skills. You become better. You get compound interest. And over time, you get the hockey stick. Now, if you don't do this, you tend to just level off and actually sink because you get burnt out. And I've seen too many of my friends later in their career, they get burnt out and all that skill kind of goes away because their attitude and their motivation isn't there. They didn't compound. So that's kind of the theme of the Year of Excellence. It's going to be included if you sign up for Closing the Complex sale in January. You can buy it all at once, or there's a payment plan. It's not a subscription. It's not a membership. It's a year-long access to all the content from day one. So you'll get all the office hours that I did in 2018, so 25 hours of that. And you can get one-on-one, so you get a sales coach that's here for you. And if there's something that would make the course enticing for you, let me know. You can schedule a call with me at b2brevenue.com. And make sure you're checking out Covideo. They've done some incredible work. And this year, if you're not using video email, it is a big mistake. You've got to find a way of connecting up with your audience, being organic and natural and authentic. And that's the way to do it. It's different. It's new. It's not really new, but it's new to you. It's going to be new to a lot of your customers, and it's going to be the way to really engage with your marketplace. And you're just going to miss out if you're not doing it. So check that out at covideo.com. Appreciate everybody listening. We'll see you next time.